Hi, everybody. I'm Professor Quesada, and I'm back talking about aesthetics today. And I'm making these videos in building my intro class in a kind of new way, and I'm including topics that are meaningful to me. And this has always been my favorite area of philosophy, the philosophy of art, or in a wider sense, aesthetics, which includes questions of beauty and art. And it asks the question, basically, what is beauty? And for that matter, what is art? I mean, can we all decide? And if we can't, who gets to decide? And this opens the door to endless kind of subdivisions of categories within aesthetics. For example, what gets to count as an object, in art? What does it mean to say that I'm holding something that is an object of art? I have my teacup here. I think most of us would agree that that's not an object of art, whereas I have my very, very special little figurine of the laughing Buddha Hote here. Needs a little shine, but nonetheless, I think we could all agree that that is an object of art. But why? What makes the difference? Is there some qualification, that a thing has to have in order to count as art? Is there some common denominator that we can all agree on, or that we should all agree on, in order to count it as art? It's kind of like love. Somehow we all know what we're talking about when we hear that word. But if you ask 10 people, you get 10 answers. And so aesthetics kind of brings us deeper into these sorts of questions of what counts as an object of art. Do all objects that we agree count as art have something in common? If so, what is that thing? And is there a difference, between different types of art, not only between different categories of art like music, movies, paintings, dance, and so forth, but also pop art and quote unquote high art? And how about, does it mean anything? Is it just lovely to look at, or can it be useful? Or does it then slide into the area of craft if it's useful? Or can something that's useful also be art? And what if it's ugly? Who gets to say it's ugly, and does it still get to be art in that case? So you can see that there are a lot of things to think about, and there's it's a kind of lovely place to discover. It's a lovely place to go. It's a kind of Pandora's box of questions. And of course, it's also the way art makes us feel. So far I've been talking about objects and what gets to count as an object of art, but we can also explore the way art makes us feel and say, well, never mind the object, we'll never agree on that, but how about the way I feel? I feel, when I walk into a museum, or even nature. Let's not leave nature out, because nature also can inspire that feeling of, oh, wow. And in a few minutes, we'll talk about Kant, who had a word for that, wow. So what is that feeling all about? What is that experience? It's pleasure. It's an experience of pleasure. You can see paintings behind me. Those are my paintings. I derive pleasure when I paint, but also when I look around and I see the pretty colors, and, and I feel like, ooh, I painted that, and it reminds me of a period in my life when painting, was a big part of it. And it's lovely. It gives me pleasure, and other people's paintings give me pleasure, and music gives me pleasure in particular. Being a big music person, I love movies. I love all art. What is this special kind of pleasure I get from art? What is the artistic experience? And what does it mean to say that a song pleases us? Am I saying no more than that? Just that I like that song, it pleases me? Or am I saying something beyond that? Am I saying that it's a good song? But then that bounces us back into the idea of the art object again. Am I saying something about my experience only? Or am I saying, I like the song and it's a good song, and therefore I'm now making a value judgment about the object? So those are questions that we talk about in aesthetics, and I'm not expecting you to have the answer. My goodness, we don't have the answer as philosophers after 2,000 and some years, but I want to invite you to think about those questions, so we're talking about, we could say a couple of different things here. The object that we call the object of art. We're talking about the experience of enjoying art. And we're also talking about then the kind of value judgment about art. Is it good or bad? Is there a standard that makes it so? Can we all agree on what that standard is? Note that once we get into this, kind of language, now we're talking about objectivity and subjectivity. Is there an objective standard? Like in ethics, that's what makes aesthetics and ethics both value topics in philosophy. Two of the branches that have that in common. There's a kind of axiology about it, this kind of notion of who gets to judge it as good or bad. We're making a value judgment about the thing. Is there an objective standard that goes beyond my individual taste? When I talk about what I think, I'm basically saying, oh, well, beauty's all in the eye of the beholder. I like it. You might not like it. It's all relative. It's hot. It's cold to me in this room, but if you get someone from Sweden here, it's not cold anymore. It's all relative. Things like that are relative. But is art only relative as well? Oh, well, I like this little statue, this little figurine. It's beautiful to me, but you might not like it. Or is it beautiful? And there's some objective standard there that makes it beautiful because of the way it's carved, because of the meaning, maybe. And therefore, there's an objective standard there. And if you don't get it, you should get it. You just don't see it. You see what I'm saying? Is there an objective standard about it? So we're talking about the object. We're talking about the judgments about it. And if there is some sort of objective criterion of good and especially of beauty and what it means for a thing to be beautiful. And we are also talking about our experience, the experience of the pleasure we get in the face of art, music, dance, all of it. Hume, the philosopher Hume, and I always liked Hume, the Scottish philosopher. I always thought that his ideas were very, very interesting and felt true to me. I'm not sure I agree with him completely on his notion of aesthetics, but I agree with a lot of what he says. He does focus on the pleasure that we get from art. And he says that really it's about that pleasure, and it's not really about anything more. So that when I'm making a judgment about something artistic and I'm saying, ooh, I really like that, I'm doing no more than that. I'm doing no more than saying I like that. So therefore, a judgment really isn't a judgment at all for Hume. It's a kind of hedonism. And hedonism is that it's an old Greek word that has to do with pleasure. So it's a kind of hedonism within the category of aesthetics, the philosophy of art, saying that art is all about the pleasure it gives us and not really much more. We're not making a value judgment about it. But he goes a little bit farther and says, well, but you should have some taste. You should develop some taste about it. But that, literally begs the question. I hate it when people misuse that expression, but in this case it fits. He really is making he's presupposing, the notion of what it means to have good taste, so, that opens up that can of worms all over again. Oh, well, who has good taste, and what does it mean to have good taste, and what standards and what criteria, constitute good taste, so that doesn't really help us. But basically what he says is our feeling about it is just that and means nothing more. It has nothing to do with the thing. When I say I like it, it's not referring to anything in the object of art. It's just a sensation. I'm just saying I like it. And so the thing that leaves me feeling unsatisfied here with Kant's hedonistic aesthetics, Hume. I haven't gotten to Kant yet. Hume. The thing that leaves me unsatisfied with Hume's hedonistic aesthetics is that seeking beauty, this idea of seeking beauty, is sort of rendered futile. You know, it's a fruitless endeavor. So we should just give it up, you know, give up the question of what beauty is. You know, it's kind of, it's akin to trying to find out what spicy is. I really love spicy food, but what spicy to me might not be spicy at all, you know, to my brother who really, really likes spicy food. It might be super spicy to someone with a more sensitive palate, you know, and who's can't handle spicy food. So it brings us back to that kind of relativity, which always left me feeling a little unsatisfied. Certainly, when we look at, you know, a great painting, say a Monet, or, you know, a great, you know, piece of music, Vivaldi's Four Seasons, aren't we saying more than just, I like it? I mean, there's just something that bothers me when we say, nope, it's just personal taste. Somehow, you know, there's more there, and I want to be able to say what it is. You know, and so that brings us back to the whole question, really. What I think it all boils down to, is there objectivity in art? Our judgments, you know, they should mean something. And it seems patently false to just say, well, anything goes, you know, anything can be art, you know, somebody out there likes it, and if you like it, you know, okay. It's just somehow unsettling. And it opens us up to those deeper questions in philosophy. For example, is there a correlation between descriptive terms like brown or shiny, which this thing is not, you know, and terms like beautiful? You know, once I shine it up, I'll say, ooh, it's beautiful again. You know, so I'm not just, if I describe it as brown, that's just descriptive. If I describe those flowers behind me as kind of a gold green, you know, or yellowish, I suppose it appears on film, you know, that's just descriptive. But once I say, I really like that painting, that was one of my favorites, you know, it's beautiful. Now I'm saying something normative. I'm making a judgment about it. This is beautiful, especially once I shine it up. Is there a correlation between I like it and the property of a thing? Am I saying something about the real, what really exists in the thing? It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful painting. Kant seemed to think so. Kant went a little further than Hume, and now I want to get into Kant just a little bit. In Kant's earlier works, he agreed more with Hume, and he took a more hedonistic stance on things. But he later decided that the pleasure that we get from art is special. It's different. It's meaningful in a deeper way. And he talked about, and this is the word I mentioned earlier on in the video, he's the one who talked a lot about the sublime, which fascinated me when I was first doing my studies in aesthetics, and I just loved the subject so much. He talked about the sublime and how nature inspires that, as well as great works of art. That feeling of, I mean, I can only gasp, because what I'm experiencing is beyond words altogether. It just leaves me speechless. It just leaves me almost stupefied. You know, it's just, it can even sometimes be, it might sound strange, but almost fearful. You know, like if you're standing at the, you know, at the edge of a great waterfall, Victoria Falls or something, or maybe even the Grand Canyon, and, you know, there's a little bit of fear there, like, oh my God, I could fall. But, you know, you feel safe enough to stand there and experience the experience, and it's awesome. A little bit fearful and overwhelming and beyond words, but awesome. That's the sublime. I'm going to read from Kant's original source on this, what he says about art, and then I'll say a few more things about the sublime before I close. He says, the person who declares something to be beautiful can find as reason for his delight no personal conditions to which his own subjective self might alone be party. Therefore, he must believe he has reason for demanding a similar delight from everyone. Accordingly, he will speak of the beautiful as if beauty were a quality of the object, there it is, and the judgment logical. Although it is only aesthetic and contains merely a reference of the representation of the object to the subject. So the point is that it's not just that I like it, there's more to it. And not only is there more to it because the experience of art is special than my experience of other things, washing my car, just, some brushing my teeth or something. Although I personally think that you can make those moments into sacred moments, but that's another story. He thinks, to stay on point, Kant thinks that the experience that we have in the face of something beautiful is a special experience. And not only that, but I should expect that everyone sees it too. So it's not just relative, that's the point. There's more to it than that. When something is beautiful, I expect that we're all going to experience it as beautiful. And if you don't, I should say to you, look again, look deeper, look more closely, or please check out this, or check out how he got the color just right, or check out how the artist, how she, how it's so balanced and how she represents the grass, or, whatever, check out this or that feature to try to deepen your experience and appreciate, this thing on a deeper level, and see what I see and hear what I hear, and surrender to the awesomeness of it and the power of it, which again, he calls the sublime. That thing that inspires this feeling that takes us beyond what words are capable of, So there's actually a difference between the beautiful and the sublime as well. Something that's beautiful gives us pleasure, and there might be some criterion about it that we either agree on or we don't, like because it's balanced, or because the music is very, it has a beautiful melody, or because of this or because of that, because of the color. Whether we agree or not, we can say that it's beautiful, but the sublime is impressive. So those are some of the things in aesthetics that fascinate me, and some of the basic questions in aesthetics. Is there something we can say about the object of art such that we can agree on why it's art? And, what about if it's political propaganda? Does it get to be art? That's another thing that I used to think about a lot. Or Danto, what about Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes? They might look exactly like the Brillo boxes in Ralph's Market, but what makes Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes art? Because we couch it in the context of art. We put it in a museum, again, it brings us back to, what is it about a thing that makes it art? Is it the context? Is it some criterion that we can somehow agree on? Is it somehow more than just that it gives us pleasure? Or is it nothing more than just our experience of it? And if it is something more, what is that judgment all about? Good versus bad? High art versus low art? Is there such a thing? And if so, who gets to decide? So with that, I'll close, and I hope that I've covered some of the basic elements of aesthetics and some of the basic questions that we ask in this branch of philosophy. And hopefully you enjoyed some of my own little anecdotes as well, the things that interest me the most. And I'll wish you a wonderful week with that, and I'll sign off.